Okay, Dr. Watts, we started.
Okay, hello everyone. This is Dr. Shell Watts of MBAadmit.com. I'm always happy to join GMAT Club on another webinar. Today we are going to introduce some of you to the Executive MBA. For some of you who have seen some of our prior presentations, this is an updated session, and so we're going to just walk you through some of the basics and the benefits of the Executive MBA programs. Before I get started, I just always want to say a little bit about our company. I've been offering advising for admissions for over 30 years. Our company actually predates all of the EMBA programs, which means that we've seen them all from year one. We understand the nuances of the programs and what can make someone a strong applicant, what can help them override weaknesses. We've had success with all the top EMBA programs. We have a great team of advisors. And for those of you who choose to work with the company, you are more than welcome to work with me directly. Here's just a snapshot of some of the top schools that we've had great success with. And we welcome you to send forward your resume if you'd like us to let you know what we think about the strength of your candidacy and where you might be competitive for an EMBA program. So what is an Executive MBA? Executive MBA is a graduate level business school degree, and it is aimed at older candidates. So what we mean by that is candidates who have 6 years of experience or more. For the full-time MBA program, most of the top schools are looking for candidates who have 2 to 5 years of work experience. Once you have more work experience than that, some of those schools feel that you're going to blend better with an older cohort. And so the Executive MBA program was developed for that older candidate. Usually the programs don't require that a student would stop working or relocate. Usually that would be very inconvenient because once you're older, you may have a family, you may have very advanced responsibilities, and many people don't want to have to stop and relocate for a full-time program, and hence the EMBA programs began to emerge. Now, many people, when they hear about Executive MBA, they get concerned that it'll be a lesser degree and that their degree will not say MBA. That is not the case. Most of the top programs do confer an MBA. The EMBA, Executive MBA, is simply the route to your MBA degree. Your diploma, in most cases, will say MBA. So what is different in the executive pool is the means and the modes by which they deliver the teaching. Remember that because it is a candidate who is older, doesn't want to necessarily move cities in order to attend school, they are creating programs where you can fly in from far away to attend the program. So that just means that some of them will meet only on weekends, so maybe only Saturdays. You might also find that they're every other weekend, once every third weekend. In the case of Kellogg Miami, it's one long weekend once a month. And then some programs just do a week-long block once a month, such as the Columbia EMBA Global, which is a joint program with London Business School, where you can fly in for a week-long session to New York or London. So there's a lot of variety, and you should, in all that variety, be able to ideally find a program that has a rhythm that will fit with your lifestyle and your work. So which of the top schools offer EMBA programs? You'll find that most of the top business schools now offer them. So Wharton was one of the first early players, and it developed an outstanding program. And then you started to see schools like Columbia launch theirs. Today, you've got this long list of all the top programs that tend to offer these. So Booth, MIT, Kellogg, Yale, NYU, the list goes on. So take a look at all those different schools. Remember that once you get your MBA, you're going to be an alumni of the business school. And so you should be asking yourself, what do you think of each of those business schools in terms of what the resources, the prestige it may offer you? What are some of the benefits of an EMBA? People who get a few years into their careers, 6 years plus, they may find that they want structured learning. They may want prestige and better branding than maybe their first school gave them. And so here's a list of some of the benefits that you pick up if you choose the EMBA route. So you'll get great branding and prestige. If you go to a top school, you'll get new skills and knowledge to apply that will help you do your job better as well as advance. You will get an extended network of alumni to sort of network with, become partners with, get tips from. Promotion, many candidates gain a promotion during or after the EMBA program. An increase of income often comes regardless of whether there's a promotion. So again, during or shortly after the program, you'll see that income increase in many cases. In many cases, if you're well established at your company, the employer may pay for the entire program, and that's obviously a great benefit. And then the EMBA programs tend to be easier to access because you don't have to take the GMAT test in most cases. The GMAT is very hard to prepare for. It takes a lot of time, very time-intensive preparation. Either the programs don't ask for a standardized test score, such as MIT or Kellogg or NYU, or they will say that you can take the executive assessment, which is a test that was developed specifically for executives, with the understanding that executives tend to be very busy and they cannot just clear their schedule to study for the GMAT. So it's a lot easier to prepare for, and therefore the barrier to these programs has been reduced greatly, which makes it a very attractive route for people who tend to be a little bit older or more advanced in their careers. So who can be a strong EMBA candidate? In general, the answer is candidates who've had a good record of professional achievement. And with that broad answer, there are 5 particular things to take note of. First, you do not need to have an executive title like director to be accepted into a top EMBA program. Again, the age range of successful candidates is from 27 to 39. That's just like an average typical age. There's people that are younger, there are people who are older in their 50s. And so it's a very diverse pool. And some people will have more junior sounding titles like project manager. Those candidates can still do great in admissions if they can showcase outstanding work experience, and then also maybe target some of the schools that prefer younger candidates. We helped a 25-year-old get into Columbia Business School as an example. He was an entrepreneur and had great experience. And then there's also people on the higher end in their mid-50s who also are able to get into these programs. So it's a very diverse pool, and the age range and the title range is very big, from sounding very junior to being a CEO. So which programs are more open to the younger candidates? If you are a younger candidate, 27, 28, 29, 31, you want to be aware of which ones are going to be more receptive to you as a younger candidate. And here's a list of some of them: Columbia, Kellogg, NYU, Duke, Booth, Cornell. Wharton will tend to prefer people older than 30, although if you are younger, you can still be successful. You just really have to showcase some great work experience in their essays. And then are some that are going to favor people who are very, what we call seasoned. So seasoned executives, older candidates. And those are schools like MIT Sloan, Booth, CBS, EMBA, Global Americas in Europe, Kellogg, and Ross. You'll note that Kellogg and Booth were on both of my lists for older and younger candidates. Is because they're very broad in who they're willing to accept. Another thing to take note of is that your GPA counts much less in the EMBA pool. So I do get candidates who approach me who have just had wonderful professional careers. They've really blossomed. And yet when they look back on their college, they had a really bad performance. So 2.1, 1.8 GPAs on a 4.0 scale. And so they're feeling like, gee, it must be out of my reach to get to a top school. That is not necessarily the case. At the EMBA level, you have to remember that for many candidates, college was years ago, could have been 13 years ago, 15 years ago. And so the schools will tend to think that it's pretty much irrelevant at this point if you can showcase some outstanding professional experience. So don't think that just because you may not have had the very top experience in terms of academics in college, that somehow you're not able to get to a top school. That's not necessarily the case. Another thing, I get people coming from non-traditional backgrounds. They're worried that the school may not be receptive to their candidacy because they're coming from a non-mainstream area. So we think of mainstream as banking or management consulting, manufacturing, maybe mainstream business capacity within something like a manufacturing company. But the schools are very open. And so if you're non-traditional, don't think you can't get in. And non-traditional can be anything from being a doctor to a teacher to a family business owner, social entrepreneur. So, and of course, engineers as well, nonprofit leaders. And so don't think that if you're coming with that background that you can't get to these top programs. The schools, again, they're very open-minded. And it's all about you talking about your experience in business relevant terms, showing that you have experiences that will be useful for your peers to learn about, and then also giving a case forward as to why you would need an MBA. Another one that comes up sometimes with candidates is another concern is that their employer doesn't seem very supportive of their desire to get an EMBA. And so what we call time sponsorship is basically when a company is saying, okay, we will make sure that you get the time off that you need to attend the program. And so many programs will ask you to forward a letter from your HR department that will say, yes, we agree that this person can take the time they need from work to attend the program. And sometimes a candidate will find that their employer does not want to say that. So there's lots of reasons why. Sometimes it could be a boss that might be jealous because they don't have an MBA and they don't want you to get one. It could be prejudice within the company. Sometimes I do find women feel that they're being blocked from getting this education. And it could be lots of things. It could just be the company culture doesn't value this sort of education. And so if that is your situation, there are ways to work around that. One, in terms of recommendations, you need someone superior to you, but it does not have to be your direct boss. So if your boss is simply a personality that does not value this, you can still try to get somebody superior to you who will be supportive. And another option is simply to look for programs that operate fully on weekends. In that case, in most instances, you don't need your company's permission. It's your time on Saturday. So you go on Saturday and you get your program completed. One program that's very popular because of that is Columbia Business School's New York Saturdays program. So again, if you're in that situation, it's always a hard situation in which to be. Know that many candidates have been able to work around that to gain access to these programs. And then if you're a career changer, I do get people who are older candidates who say, look, I really want to change my career. And I've heard that, the EMBA is not good for that. Well, in many ways, if you're older, so say you're 45, the odds that you're going to get into a top full-time program are extremely small because those programs are targeting candidates between the ages of 25 and 29. So you've aged out of that pool. And so the EMBA really is your best option for a top program. And it's very much a myth that you cannot change careers with an EMBA. We've seen plenty of people do that. Remember that when you get this business school training, you're getting new skills that are marketable. You also, in most cases, have access to the career services of the school. And with those career services, you get support on revising your resume, preparing for interviews, getting leads among alumni members in different companies, and even recruiting. So the EMBA can be useful if you're trying to change careers. So to recap, there are many benefits that you would get from an EMBA program. Here are some of them again. And so if you're someone who's finding that you will feel like you'll benefit from the education, from the branding, from the network, from maybe increased opportunity to get a pay increase or promotion, it is definitely a program that you may want to take a look at the various schools. And it's been great options. It's been wonderful to see these programs come out and get better every year. So feel free to contact us if you're interested in an EMBA program, and especially if you are looking to get feedback on the strength of your candidacy and where you might be competitive. We're more than happy to give you a free profile evaluation. And again, this is our contact information. I'm happy now to take some questions. I'll take a few questions in the aftermath. So let me get out of the screen so I can see some of the questions that might be coming across. Okay, so here we are. And let me see. So we do have some questions here. Okay, so I think I see a bit of a question talking about, are there costs for the EMBA? Of course, there are costs to the EMBA. There's tuition and there are fees and so forth. But if some employers actually offer funding for it, partial or fully. And so that's a benefit of this. And so the regular MBA is just geared toward people who are younger, and people who are younger, say you've got 3 to 5 years of work experience. At that age range, sometimes candidates really want to stop working and have that immersive full-time educational experience. And so that's who would be looking at the regular MBA, is that younger candidate. Someone is asking about Harvard Business School. Harvard does not yet offer an executive MBA, and they've been very resistant to introducing that. They do have executive education, which will be courses that you can take. After taking a lot of them, sometimes you're able to get alumni status at Harvard, but it's really not the same as a degree. And so most of my candidates won't be looking at Harvard as one of the options. They really want a degree, an MBA degree. I have a question about how hard is the executive assessment. It's really all about where your skills are. Now, most of the schools are most concerned about the quant score on that. And people ask, well, what is an ideal executive assessment score? And the answer is most schools will be assured if you get 10 on quant. And so if you have a 150 and your quant is 10, at many of the top schools, that will be just fine. It depends partly on your profile. The one school that is much more picky about the executive assessment is Wharton. And so based on your profile, it's going to sort of dictate where you need to be. But in general, if you have a 155, quant of 12 or higher, you should be reasonably okay at Wharton. For Indian foreign national men, the standard tends to be somewhat higher. And so for that candidate, 157 is definitely safer. Okay, I'm going to read some of these questions. What are some of the top programs abroad? Basically, all of the top business schools around the world seem to have introduced the executive MBA. And so just ask yourself, what are some of the top schools? And then you're going to find the correlation in terms of the better EMBA programs. So London Business School, Oxford, INSEAD, HEC, those are some of the schools that offer the EMBA. And it's wonderful, again, to see the innovation that's occurring in this space, because some of the schools are launching campuses in the Middle East, to Dubai. And so it makes it easier for someone in India, say, to fly into that area and get the training. And it might be school, London Business School or Booth, where they get the degree from those institutions, but they're doing it at a campus that's a lot closer and therefore easier to commute to. Do women have an advantage in EMBA admissions? I would say yes, on the whole, because fewer women apply to these programs. So the schools are very excited when they see a woman who's very qualified. And so they would be, very welcoming to that candidate. So yes, I do think women do have a bit of an advantage in terms of admissions for the top EMBA programs. I'm reading a couple more through. Are students able to manage time between work and the EMBA? Well, some of these top schools will ask you as one of the questions, how do you intend to manage the time? And you really do need to think that through, because they are rigorous programs. Some people are told it's about 20 hours of work out, a week. And so you need to identify where is that time coming from. You'll have chunks of time on your weekend that you can devote. And then some people make arrangements with their employers to have a little more free time so they can be studying. And some people naturally get off earlier during the week, say at 6 p.m. Therefore, they naturally have a couple hours in the week every day to continue to study. But you really should ask yourself that, where is the time coming from? Can you create that time that you need, not only to be at the program, but also to prepare and do the homework? So I have a broad question here about which is more prestigious, EMBA or MBA. Well, just remember that your degree is going to say MBA. So if you took the executive route and you go to Wharton, when you write your resume up, it's going to say MBA from Wharton. So people really wouldn't know that that was your route unless they're discussing it with you, because it just wouldn't show up that way on your resume. So I think the issue about prestige is kind of a false concern, because end of the day, you get the branding of the business school from which you graduate, and you will be an MBA graduate of that school. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple more questions here. Let's see if I've missed something here. Give me a second. Okay, so I have someone asking a specific question about having 5.5 years of experience in different government companies or organizations. Yes, government experience counts. What I'd be concerned about with 3 different organizations is were they related? How long did you stay at each one? Sometimes schools don't like you to move around too much. And so I just kind of see the breakdown in terms of time in each of those. But in terms of the government experience, it can be very relevant. You just need to make sure that when you're writing your essays, you are speaking in business relevant terms. All right, so I'm going to take maybe 2 more questions. I'm going to go back to that question about the executive assessment. Now, people always ask also, like, how much time does it take to prepare? Again, it's all a matter of where are your skills right now. I have some candidates who are doing a lot of quantitative work, and they may even have like the CFA, so they're used to very quantitative, being challenged quantitatively. For them, they probably won't need to put in a whole lot of work. They could be ready in about 3 weeks. Other people have not had a lot of quant for years, and so that candidate may take a little bit more time to prepare. But again, that may be about 3 months or so. So it's really not very much of an obstacle. They just want to make sure that you have the quant skills to get through the program and do well. And so preparing for the executive assessment does help you prepare to actually complete the program without it being too stressful. All right, I think I'm only going to take 1 additional question. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to just, there's a question about the ROI, or return on investment, of the EMBA. If you Google that, you're going to get a whole webinar that we presented about that. So why didn't you do that? Because we did lay out some great benefits and how to think about return on investment. And in terms of, I'll just do 2 more questions that I see here. How many recommendations are required? For most programs, it's 2 letters of recommendations. For a few, it's only 1, but most of them it's 2. And if your current boss is reluctant, remember that the writer just simply needs to be superior to you and knows your work directly. So if there's somebody else superior in the company that would be more willing to write the letter, you should explore that as an option. And then finally, do I expect EMBA programs to go online again this year? For some of you who are familiar with what happened last year, because of the pandemic, many of the programs obviously could not meet in person, and so they were held online. The schools gave admitted candidates the option to defer a year because they knew that some people wanted that in-person experience. But, you know, they were there, they still operated. And this year, it's all a matter of what's going to happen in terms of the pandemic, if it gets a lot worse as we get into the winter months in the USA and Europe. And so based on what happens there and what happens with the COVID infection numbers, that will impact whether or not these programs are going to be in person, if it's going to be a hybrid. And so just, you know, keep a lookout for that in terms of what might happen. But just also remember that if you are admitted and then you find out that the program will be online mostly, last year they did give people the option to defer if they wanted to wait until the program started to meet in person again. So you should have options. All right, so that is that. Feel free to reach out to us at our website. And again, if you would like a profile evaluation, feel free to fill out the profile evaluation form on our website or send in your resume, and we're happy to get back to you. So thank you again for being here. As always, it was a pleasure. and good luck in your admissions journey.